Is Jesus Christ a homunculus? This concept, deeply rooted in religious and philosophical thought of the time, suggested that Jesus, as the Son of God, was born in a perfected and unchanging adult form. This video is not here to discredit Jesus. It's not our goal to send disrespect, although this may be considered blasphemous. I will handle the subject to the best of my ability with an open mind, not attempting to make irrational claims, and truly just explore the idea from a research perspective, as there are some serious connections to be made. So, is Jesus Christ a homunculus? Is it such a crazy thought? Let's just think about this for a moment. He is birthed of a virgin, so he was born without the use of sex. It's obvious that this was some type of miraculous birth. Well, there are people who have spoken about this very topic, not only in the modern day, but there are actual historical figures who discuss this, although cryptically. This goes back to the early 15th century with Alonso Tostado, who was a Spanish theologian, counselor of John II of Castile, and briefly Bishop of Avila. His epitaph stated, "Wonder of earth, all men can know he scanned." A leading scholar of his generation, he's particularly known as an early theorist on witchcraft. Tostado proposed that Mary was a sealed vessel.
I just wanted y'all to get this. It says Jesus' growth within the womb of the Virgin was therefore solely one of augmentation, not the development in a certain sense. Jesus himself was conceived as a homunculus, a miniature human kept in a sealed vessel from the first instant of his creation. The idea of Jesus' instantaneous creation would find example expression in the iconography of late medieval art, where the holy infant is often depicted as a fully formed child descending from above into the womb of Mary.
But this is not the same as a traditional homunculus. It's very close because Mary had the menstrual blood and the womb. Tostado argued that Mary would not have enough blood for the full development of Jesus in the womb. Therefore, he would have been condensed into a miniature version of a baby. Therefore, they were attempting to explain the creation of Jesus as a homunculus, or in this case, a miniature human kept in a sealed vessel from the moment of creation, through the same ideology that we witnessed with Liber Vaccae. Tostado also discussed the potential consequences of creating homunculi, stating that allowing a homunculus to grow into a fully developed human could be seen as tempting God and would reduce the term mother to the status of a flask. Additionally, this concept would go against the views of the Church, particularly the idea of salvation, where God died for everyone's sins, excluding spontaneously created life forms resulting from experiments like homunculus. This idea is reflected in the Arnaldian homunculus legend, where Arnold of Villanova would kill his alchemical homunculi before God might infuse a rational soul into the conceived. Arnold of Villanova was the ambassador for James II, King of Aragon and Sicily. He was known as the first physician that used alcohol as an antiseptic. This is in the 14th century. The first known mention of Arnold of Villanova comes from this period, specifically after 1323, as documented in the Biblioteca Comunale in Palermo. Now, why was Arnold suddenly the talk of the town? Well, it seems to be tied to a legend put forth by canonist John Andrea in 1346. According to this tale, our man Arnold successfully demonstrated alchemical transmutation to the Roman Curia in 1301. He showed the royal court how to create a homunculus. Now we're going to begin to take a look at medieval and early Christian art to assist us in our analysis. We didn't bring it up, but one thing to consider is that the great artists of history were typically initiated into the secrets as well, for they needed to embed the symbolism in their works. If we examine these paintings, we may find answers that are not to be found in the historical record. There are many curious details to consider. To begin, there are paintings that show the moments of Mary's annunciation by the angel Gabriel. We'll start with one of the most famous paintings by Leonardo da Vinci, who typically does get tied into this story involving the Jesus bloodline and the Templars. However, If we examine his painting on the Annunciation of Mary, there are some interesting things to consider. Mary has her hand pointed up with a specific hand pose, but her right hand is in that Rosicrucian hand pose that I was speaking about earlier, and it's pointing down. What is she doing here? First, she's reading on a lectern, but it's some sort of chest with ornamental design. This is typically where people won't look in detail, and the Brotherhoods will put some of their symbols here. We see the seashell. We know that that is a sex symbol, but also a symbol for spontaneous generation. Then under, we see the Rosicrucian roses. In the background, we see a quite detailed city that seems to be of Leonardo's time. Yet, are these the type of buildings that they were building in Bethlehem or even Nazareth? Speaking of buildings, there are some paintings by Giotto de Bondone in the Scrovegni Chapel, Padua, that show the Annunciation through symbols, where the priest is holding a building that is placed over the womb of Mary, and there are 3 figures behind the building representing the alchemical stages. There are 2 Marys, one in the front, which she's dressed in more church attire, and in the center, then there's another Mary in the back dressed in red. Behind her is the angel Gabriel. From Simone Martini and Lippo Memmi, in this painting of the Annunciation from 1333, it's very similar to Leonardo's painting, but this time there's a vessel with white flowers in front of Mary. And also, this whole reading book thing is strange because it means that she was of a higher class or status. We can see the Holy Spirit is the dove encased in some type of circle of baby cherubim. Interestingly, we can see that there are rulers of the church depicted with portraits that seem to have dark skin. These are said to be the prophets that allude to the mystery of the Incarnation. From the left, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, and Daniel. Interestingly, there's something else to consider. They don't really know who this figure on the right is, and they even say the inscription under her feet, which identifies her as Judith, is incorrect. In Fra Angelico's painting from 1437, and I remember this one from art history class because it was an early form of perspective, and there are things to gather from this as we can see the same rose ornamentation. However, there are previous other works that are far more detailed and colorful that show what these look like in completion. This seems to be the final work, and it's mind-blowing. In this painting we see something clear. It's the same painting where they're both leaning over, but there's a beam of light shooting into here this time, and it goes up to the right corner where there are hands, so this is coming from God. But if we look close, God is actually shooting the Holy Spirit, but this is the middle pillar, another Kabbalistic reference, and the 3 again. Jesus is being sent into Mary as she is reading another book. Now you may think this is reaching, but it's not a matter whether this is true or artistic interpretation. It's the fact that we see this with such repetition and frequency through different artists. It starts to get really weird. There are paintings from the early 1300s showing the same thing. Let's take a look at Pacino de Boneguida and his Tree of Life, 1310 Tempera on panel. It seems blatant that these artists were well aware of the Kabbalistic tradition. There are a theme of Jesus paintings from the medieval ages called the Tree of Life paintings. This Tree of Life gold painting on wood represents a typical Franciscan subject, the genesis of creation and fall, with the cross of Jesus as the Tree of Life symbolizing God's provision for immortality in the Garden of Eden. The center of the painting depicts the crucified Christ, while the devil is depicted in the cave at the base, indicating that Christ's death is the result of Adam and Eve's sin. There's not much information on him or his work, so the mainstream art historians are no help at all. It seems obvious that this is Kabbalistic in nature. It is the roadmap, or the Tree of Life, connected to the Sephiroths, which are each different spiritual realms. You see this exact same image in alchemy, so there's no doubt that this is what they were discussing. Remember, this is from the 14th century, 1305 to be exact. That's crucial to note because I got some serious questions. Well, for starters, what's that above Jesus' head? The symbol of the bird and her young and the feeding from the womb? This is the homunculus symbol, and we know enough now to fully investigate this matter as we progress. But the key point is, what is this symbol doing in a painting predating the Rosicrucians by over 300 years? Because officially, the mainstream historians will not accept that they even existed before the manifestos appeared between 1610 and 1615, the exact period when the King James Bible was published. Interestingly, even in the mainstream, the Rosicrucians claim that their ancestry goes back to 1313, and the order composed of 12 exalted beings gathered around a 13th, and that these beings advance beyond rebirth. So they're literally telling you. I'll break that down in a moment, but the only argument for why this Rosicrucian symbol is in a 1300s painting is simply because this means Christ's sacrifice on the cross. But if that's true, it must be an ancient symbol, and it's kind of gross because this symbol implies something far greater than what's being suggested on the surface. But back to the painting. So this painting is exactly what the Rosicrucians were saying. They said that they were there during the time of Christ, and they claim their order started in the 1300s. Then we have this painting from 1305 with the Rosicrucian bird. Well, there's more, because if you ask me, that's not a cave under Jesus, that's an athanor, or a furnace used in the alchemical process. Also, it seems that this is a Franciscan monk that had his face scratched off, and we know about them and their connection with alchemy. Well, I think the answer is confirmed when we zoom into the Annunciation. Jesus is sitting in the throne in heaven, and then is reborn or sent as a tiny little homunculus through this beam of light into Mary. Look closely, it's an actual body. This predates all the paintings that I've showed you so far, and since there's similarities in the style, we can conclude that the later authors were also aware of this symbolism, as they secretly reference the same things, becoming more subtle in progression. Baby Jesus is transported via the air through a stream of golden rays. We also see the same figure behind her, robed in black. And this isn't just a one-time scenario thing either, there are many more. And the illumination from Jean Mansell. Okay, this is even stranger. We see the Holy Trinity sitting in heaven. The banner around them says, "Let's make man in our image and likeness." Then we see a beam of light shooting a literal physical baby into the bedroom with a sleeping woman. This time the husband witnesses the miracle, but notice the candle symbolism in the middle. Just like the middle pillar, these artists use composition, geometry, and alignment to communicate certain symbols. There's actually a website from over a decade ago that talks about a lot of this stuff. I'll leave it in the reference list. Here is the Annunciation 1380 by an unknown painter. It shows another depiction of the homunculus being sent to Mary. Another interesting piece is Robert Campin, Marode Altarpiece, 1425 to 1428. This Annunciation's different. Again, Mary is reading her book, but if we zoom out, can you spot the homunculus? Right here, it's being shot in right through the window. But let's take a look at some of the other symbols. First, this is a threefold piece, so there's a painting on the left and right. This is a constant theme in these paintings that depict the church and even royalty being a part of this process. It doesn't matter if it's an artistic interpretation if it's consistent and worthy of note. You can even see the coat of arms on the window. In terms of alchemy, we see the mixing bowl or pot right over Gabriel where the baby's coming through, and in between Gabriel and Mary, above is some white towel and a red decoration, which seems to be a flower decoration with the face of a baby, but it's red. That's quite significant. She's also very close to this fireplace, where there are some interesting ornaments. Van Eyck has some of these same symbols. Now let me show you an Annunciation that does the symbolism in a different way. Roger van der Weyden, the Annunciation 1435, depicts another three-piece painting, where we see 3 red pillows and 3 white flowers by Gabriel. This one has no baby, but there's a flask behind Gabriel. He did this twice supposedly, and in the second one, you can see that there's a dove being implanted. Sandro Botticelli, the Annunciation 1489, we see Gabriel holding the 3 white flowers again. This time, the symbol for a seed is the tree. From Pietro Perugino, the Annunciation 1489, Gabriel is holding 3 flowers, usually either lily or violet. God is surrounded by baby angels and is holding a sphere as he sends down the dove to impregnate Mary. This could be seen as the seeding process. In Filippo Lippi's The Annunciation, 1440, we see a much more occult ritualistic setting, and we see the seashells as well connecting Mary to Venus and spontaneous generation. Notice the 3-pillar symbolism and how the dove is being shot into Mary. It's very weird to see these symbols depicted in famous religious art. The next one's even stranger. Carlo Crivelli, The Annunciation with Saint Amadeus, 1486. In this painting, we see a different version. Gabriel is actually speaking with the Pope, or head of the church. But wait, the church wasn't created yet, so why is this constantly referenced as if they're watching over this process? And this time, look at Mary's pose and hands. This is some type of ceremony in a closed room. And notice the dove is being shot into her head. But look at the shelf. There's a lit candle and a flask. The ornaments are showing the tree of life growing out of the chalice, and also the Pope is trying to use this information or knowledge of Gabriel to create the structures or city in his lap. We see this symbolism by the trapping of the tree within a vessel and controlling its growth within a cage or window. I haven't mentioned, but take note that Gabriel always has a parrot or peacock-like colorful wings. It's an interesting detail. And in this painting, he has a serpent-like headdress. Andrea Mantegna, 1431, has a painting on the Annunciation that actually makes the peacock symbolism blatant. Not only that, but this painting clearly depicts the medieval ages. So as we can see, the early double-headed black phoenix of the Holy Roman Church. But even stranger, the head of the dove in this one is a baby. So it's some type of hybrid creature encased in light. The peacock is deeply associated with alchemy, as we'll see, specifically with the creation of the homunculus. Mary is shown praying before a book and an Annunciation from the Black Hours, a very unusual and beautiful book of hours from 1480, colored entirely in black and blue, and the angel is sometimes depicted with a staff that looks to be a priest. Some other interesting paintings are Federico Baracci, The Annunciation 1592, and Peter Paul Rubens, The Annunciation from 1628. And it just goes on and on. There are many paintings, and probably more mysterious ones still to be discovered if we look with new eyes. But let's go back to the Tree of Life paintings for a second, because those paintings from 1300s have interesting alchemical Kabbalistic symbols. There are other Tree of Life paintings showing Jesus on a Kabbalistic cross. The reason we bring it up is because you can see the same symbols of the Rosicrucian phoenix and her young, which of course they say is a pelican, but break down what that means to feed your young in that manner. Then at the bottom, it seems sometimes it's depicted as a cave, but still the symbols of death and rebirth are clear. Why would Jesus be depicted in this way in some of the earliest Christian paintings in our historic record? Obviously some figures within the church noticed the Kabbalistic alchemical similarities. Now this is interesting. According to a video from Vox in 2015, they seem to have a talent for alluding to great mysteries. A video called "Why Babies in Medieval Paintings Look Like Ugly Old Men." It's really weird because they basically say the secret in the video, but never fully connect it any further. The idea is that these medieval depictions of babies were drawn ugly on purpose. They had mastered perspective, lighting, and shading. There's no reason to draw babies in this fashion. But supposedly, the reason is that these babies were homunculi. So wait, medieval artists were intentionally painting homunculus and associating it with the child version of Jesus? The homunculus, or little man from Latin, heavily influenced depictions of infants, especially in religious artwork. This concept, deeply rooted in religious and philosophical thought of the time, suggested that Jesus, as the Son of God, was born in a perfected and unchanging adult form. They say that this belief resulted in a unique artistic convention where infants, particularly the baby Jesus, were depicted as miniature adults, sometimes with an uncanny resemblance to middle-aged men. Perhaps it's not an artistic convention, but more so a secret reference to a hidden science. It's shocking to me that this is commonly accepted, yet what are the implications if this is true? Vox seems to agree that it's not an error, they did it intentionally, that these babies in medieval art and in religious paintings are depicting homunculi.
Okay, so this is why I want to make a connection with the garbage pail kids. So I'm going to show you that they was originally growing them in manure and waste and like biochemical waste. Okay, this was an old 80s like trading card kind of video TV show, like cartoon show. The Garbage Pail Kid. They was telling us about the homunculus all this time. That's the and if you see, it's a bunch of different versions of them. Like you never know what you're gonna get. Now we got Trump. It's Trump, but homunculus. Who knew this was back in the 80s? This was back in the 80s. You got Ted Cruz. That one right there is deep. That's the Zodiac. Wow, that's deep. You got Chillery. You got Chillery. They got Bernie. Oh, they came back out in 2016. It's funny who got picked for a homunculus Garbage Pail Kids card in 2016. Who got picked? Right? And it was like 500 different types. Like, it's like you never know what creation you gonna get. I think they was putting like the male reproduction serum. You did. I don't want to get the guidelines messed up, but they get the male reproductive serum injected in an egg, then seal it with like a Band-Aid for like the little hermetic seal, and then like to keep the warmth, they'll put the egg either like in a sealed cow, like put it up in a cow's reproductive entry and like seal it up, or they'll put it in manure and just keep packing hot manure on top of it. Okay, so yeah, I just thought this was interesting. The Garbage Pail Kids. Look at what they saying. Like they came out of the garbage. I'm gonna get the intro to the show, and I think they kind of give a little brief explanation, but and make sure y'all check out MindUnveiled, man. They doing heavy, over the moon, out of this world work over there. That's my source. I'm crediting my source. Everybody need to be hip to MindUnveiled. Go subscribe, hit the notification, all that. Share, definitely share. MindUnveiled. Credit the source. Fair use though, y'all. Don't hit me with a copyright. Fair use. But yeah. Let's see. Homunculus said to create it in alchemist attempt human transmutation itself will result in the failure of the person, reviewed not to be expected. A new experience is brought about. So that's kind of what I was saying about you never know what the outcome will be with these homunculus. You know what I mean? You got to do a lot of trial and errors till you get the right formula, right temperature, right amount of fluids. You see the man put the thing in the egg, pulled out a tiny monster, alchemical recipe. Alchemical recipe for a homunculus. Rotten meat, mini artificial human. There you go right there. We need to say that. There you go right there. I like to cite different sources because if you hear from one, you might just think, oh, well, that's just him. That's just them. So I try to cite as many sources as I can. Yeah, but this is all alchemy. This is all alchemy. Okay? And you could do this in your own house. Don't do it. don't do it, but you could do it. Grow your own. Demons, witchcraft, and alchemy, the homunculus. How to create one. Look like Darby from, what was that? Planet Lord of the Rings or something like that. Alchemy and the homunculus. Demons, witchcraft, and alchemy. So they not even they flat out telling you what it do and how to make it do what it do. Homunculus fully formed human body. We know that. Yeah, let's just poke, we know they say it mean little person in Latin or something like that. So here goes some further information if you need to tap in. Should they spell it out for you, how to even put it together? You got the little picture right here, drawn as a reproductive fluid. Yeah, that might be good for a later reference too. So yeah, I mean, you go down the rabbit hole with me, man. I like to document what I'm researching so that, it can be compounded upon. People can build on it, people could correct it, people could verify it, discredit it. There you go, manure right there, horse manure. I told you, and manure. Kind of like how mold to grow, fermented yeast and stuff like that, how mold to grow and get furry, and it's like a whole new organism turn colors. So you see it say 40 days, 40 nights in a pile of horse dung. Okay, you see it say manure for 40 days. Horse manure for 40 days. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think down at the bottom. I'm out.